Tonight on the Worldview Report, the United States and the European Union, they reach a landmark deal averting a major trade war. The war on food is heating up, but the resistance is also forming as several states are pushing back against fake bioengineered food products. The official handgun of the U.S. Air Force comes under new scrutiny after a young airman is killed by an accidental discharge of his service weapon. And another U.S. airliner narrowly avoids tragedy shortly before takeoff. The British are coming for their own citizens, and everyday normal people are being locked up on the flimsiest of charges. And why is the new media hiding the real story behind the Michigan mass stabbing attack that took place over the weekend? We'll fill you in. All these stories and more as the Worldview Report begins right now.
This is Worldview Report with host Brandon House. Whether it is news from the nation's capital or your state capital, from the classroom to the boardroom, from national security to national and local news that impacts you and your family, Worldview Report is your trusted source for vital and uncensored news. And now, here is Brandon House.
Good evening and welcome to the Worldview Report. I'm Brandon House. Leading off tonight, the United States and the European Union on Sunday reached a trade deal ending a months-long standoff. Quote, "We have reached a deal. It's a good deal for everybody," end quote. So said U.S. President Donald Trump. That's what he told reporters after talks with the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. That was in Scotland. Quote, "We have a trade deal between the two largest economies in the world. And it's a big deal. It's a huge deal," end quote. So said Ursula herself, who was seeking to finalize an agreement with Washington before the August 1st deadline, adding that, quote, "It will bring stability. It will bring predictability. That's very important for businesses on both sides of the Atlantic," end quote. Together, the EU and the U.S. are a market of 800 million people and nearly 44% of global GDP. Quote, "We are agreeing that the tariff straight across for automobiles and everything else will be a straight across tariff of 15%, end quote. That was according to President Trump. Currently, most EU goods, they face a 10% tariff with levies of 50% on steel and aluminum. Cars and car parts, they're being taxed at 25%. President Trump also said that the bloc had agreed to purchase $750 billion worth of energy from the U.S., as well as $600 billion more in additional investments. The president told reporters at the start of the meeting that fairness was the main remaining sticking point. Quote, "Europe is very closed. We don't sell cars into Europe. We don't sell essentially agriculture of any great degree," end quote. That's what he said. And then he added that pharmaceuticals won't be part of any agreement. The trade pact, it means that the bloc would avoid the 30% tariffs that President Trump had threatened on all goods from the EU. The 15% rate is the same as the one announced with Japan earlier last week, but it marks a significant compromise, especially given that, well, Ursula offered a 0-for-0 tariff for industrial goods when talks began. The deal, of course, will need to be approved by all 27 member states. This next story marks the latest milestone in the war on food. Real food is under attack because the plan is to replace it with fake food. But some states are fighting back. Center Square reports that Texas will become the 7th state to ban the production and sale of lab-grown meat in September. Florida was the first, followed by Alabama last year. This year, 5 more states, including Texas, followed suit. They did so after the Trump administration took the opposite approach. In 2019, the first Trump administration was the first in U.S. history to begin the process to authorize lab-grown chickens, seafood, and beef in the U.S. In 2023, under former President Joe Biden, the U.S. became the second country in the world to approve the production and sale of lab-grown meat. recognizing the importance of the Texas cattle industry and health concerns that were expressed by Texans. Republican State Senator Charles Perry, when he filed Senate Bill 261 to ban the sale of lab-grown meat. This bill, which includes civil and criminal penalties, received bipartisan support. It was signed into law by Governor Greg Abbott last month. Perry's bill, the analysis states, quote, the introduction of lab-grown meat could disrupt traditional livestock markets, affecting rural economies and family farms. There are concerns over transparency and labeling, risk of contamination, and the long-term health impacts of consuming cell-cultured products, end quote. Cell-cultured protein is made by harvesting animal cells and growing them artificially in a bioreactor to produce tissue-based food products. The Air Force on Thursday identified the security forces airman that was killed at F.E. Warren Air Force Base in Wyoming by a firearm that was discharged. That led to America's nuclear missile and bomber bases temporarily banning the use of the service-issued M18 handgun. Military.com reports that 21-year-old airman Braden Loven was killed by the firearm discharge last Sunday at the base. Following his death, Air Force Global Strike Command, they issued an immediate order pausing the use of the 9mm Sig Sauer M18 handguns. They followed up with full-fledged investigations and inspections into the firearm, which, frankly, should have taken place years ago before this latest tragedy. You see, it's not the first time someone was harmed by this particular Sig Sauer model. The incident and ongoing probe into this gun, well, it comes amid the recent controversies involving the firearm manufacturer's P320 series, the civilian designation for the guns, including, of course, lawsuits after the reports and allegations of unintended discharges among civilians and cops and military service members. The lawsuits, well, they claim that the firearms can unintentionally discharge. Lovin, he entered the service on November 6, 2023, serving at F.E. Warren, and had been assigned to the 90th Security Forces Squadron since May 8, 2024. That's according to the news release. The airman was from Greenville, Kentucky. That's according to an online obituary that was posted in the newspaper locally. He was a member of the First Missionary Baptist Church in Greenville and also played football, basketball, track, and field. And last month, Sig Sauer, they repeatedly filed a lawsuit in court asking the Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission to reverse its decision to ban police recruits from carrying the handgun due to concerns and accounts of, well, unintended discharges. That's what was reported by NBC affiliate King 5. There are widespread claims of the weapon firing, as we said, unintentionally. They've been reported by media outlets, including New Hampshire Public Radio, which obtained reports of 9 such incidences within the military when the weapon reportedly fired without the trigger being pulled. Amid growing media reports and lawsuits, Sig Sauer said in a March news release that, quote, the P320 cannot, under any circumstances, discharge without a trigger pull, end quote, adding that, quote, the allegations against the P320 are nothing more than individuals seeking to profit or avoid personal responsibility, end quote. Well, this company apparently needs to own up to the problems and make it right, if indeed it is something that is happening unintentionally. We'll keep you posted on this story. Another near tragedy that involved an American commercial passenger jet. That took place over the weekend. This time it was an American Airlines plane at Denver International Airport that was rapidly evacuated. That was on Sunday after one of its wheels caught fire, and passengers and crew, well, they fled the aircraft via emergency slides. Watch the chaotic scene unfold after the jet experienced an issue with its landing gear.
You okay? No, he's not.
To your right. Leave room for the fire truck. Watch out for the fire truck. Everybody, remain calm. Fire's here. Fire's here. Everybody head towards the east side of the runway, please. East side of the runway.
The problem was reported as American Airlines Flight 3023 from Denver to Miami was still on the runway. The Denver Fire Department said it extinguished a fire after responding to the aircraft. All 173 passengers and 6 crew members on board the Boeing 737 MAX 8, thankfully, they were safely evacuated from the aircraft. 5 people were evaluated, but were not transported for further treatment, while 1 person was transported for medical attention for a minor injury. The British government has reportedly hired a special police unit to monitor citizens and their social media posts. I guess they're looking for anti-migrant opinions as they brace for another potential summer of unrest. Breitbart notes that rather than address the concerns of the public, such as removing the mostly young male illegal aliens from the taxpayer-funded hotels and communities across the country, the UK Home Office has formed a special investigations unit to, quote, maximize social media intelligence, end quote, about anti-mass migration sentiment on social media. That's according to The Telegraph. The team, they will work out of the COVID lockdown enforcing National Police Coordination Center in London. Comes amid protest outside of migrant hotels, starting with the Bell Hotel in Epping, where locals have staged several protests after an illegal from Ethiopia was accused of sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl from the area. Protests against planned migrant hotels, they have also broken out in Norfolk and London. The government, they took a hard-line approach to what Prime Minister Keir Starmer branded as far-right outpouring of anger. The police, they arrested nearly 1,300 people, including some who merely posted on social media, such as Lucy Connolly. She's a mother who received a 31-month prison sentence for a Facebook comment in relation to the riots. We'll be right back after this break.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
Welcome back from the break. And as always, thank you for remembering that we are brought to you by you. You can make a contribution now to help us continue to push out Christian worldview news, programming, and information through the lens of a Christian worldview. You can do that at worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. If you make a contribution, we send out the first week of every February tax receipts with our EIN number. So thank you for your donations. Remember, we also have a church. Sunday nights, we hold a church service, and I'm teaching through the book of Revelation. Last night was no exception. Here I was, teaching through Revelation chapter 18. Finished up chapter 18 last night. So, Lord willing, this coming Sunday night, I'll start out on Revelation chapter 19, verse 1. If you appreciate all we're doing, ministry, public service, education, we appreciate your support. WorldviewFoundation.com, WorldviewFoundation.com. And of course, you'll find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. So thank you for that. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has approved hundreds of drugs without proof that they work. And in some cases, despite evidence that they actually don't work. That's the finding of a blistering 2-year investigation by medical journalist Jean Linz and Shannon Brownlee, published by The Lever. Reviewing more than 400 drug approvals between the years of 2013 and 2022, the authors, they found the agency repeatedly ignored its own scientific standards. One expert put it bluntly. The FDA's threshold for evidence, quote, can't go any lower because it's already in the dirt, end quote. Well, the findings, they were very damning. 73% of drugs approved by the FDA during the studied period, well, they failed to meet all four basic criteria for demonstrating substantial evidence of effectiveness. Those 4 criteria, here they are. Presence of a control group, replication in 2 well-conducted trials, blinding of participants and investigators, and the use of clinical endpoints like symptom relief or extended survival. Folks, these are the bedrock of drug evaluation. Yet only 28% of drugs met all 4 criteria. 40 drugs met none. These are not obscure technicalities. I want to make that very clear. They are the most basic safeguards to protect patients from ineffective or even dangerous treatments. But under political and, industrial pressure, apparently the FDA has increasingly abandoned these standards in favor of, speed and so-called regulatory flexibility. I would say follow the money. That's my opinion. You see, since the early 1990s, the agency, they have relied heavily on expedited pathways that fast-track drugs to the market. So in theory, this balances, they say, urgency with scientific rigor. But in practice, it's flipped the process. You see, companies, they can now get drugs approved before proving that they actually work, with the promise of follow-up trials later. But as the authors, Linzer and Brownlee, reported, quote, nearly half of the required follow-up studies are never completed. And those that are often, fail to show the drugs work, even while they remain on the market, end quote. And then the authors concluded, quote, this represents a seismic shift in FDA regulation that has been quietly accomplished with virtually no awareness by doctors or the public, end quote. The Independent Sentinel reports that Flagship Pioneering, the bioplatform innovation company which helped fund the Moderna mRNA COVID injections, they unveiled a new product recently, that's every bit as terrifying. It's called Terrana Biosciences. According to AgFund News, this company is pioneering RNA-based agricultural solutions to deliver protective and enhanced crop traits. Allegedly, it does this without altering the plant genome. In fact, they're going to start spraying this on our crops. One of the co-founders of Terrana and the founder and CEO of Flagship Pioneering says the following on the company's website, quote, at Flagship Pioneering, we build groundbreaking platforms that address the world's most pressing challenges. With Terrana, we're bringing an entirely new dimension of innovation to agriculture through similar RNA technology that we pioneered in human health. This approach will empower farmers with precise, adaptive solutions, combat threats to crops in fields and orchards and enhance resiliency, sustainability, and productivity in the global food system, end quote. Terrana co-founder and CEO Ryan Rapp described his product in the same terms used nearly a decade ago by former Moderna chief medical officer Hal Zaks, who once said that the human genome was the, quote, software of life, end quote, and could be hacked. It could be manipulated and improved upon by, well, modern scientists using what they called so-called vaccines. Well, here's what Rapp said about plant life. Quote, think of it like software. You can stick a floppy disk or USB drive into the computer and give it a set of instructions. This is the first time we've had a platform where we can actually do this in plants, end quote. Programmable plants. Well, really, what could possibly go wrong, right? Terrana Biosciences, their team, they're packed with big names and big ag and big pharma. That's supposed to be, I guess, reassuring to us that everything is on the up and up. Everything's going to be fine. It'll all work out. In fact, Terrana claims that their platform will enable farmers to fight and prevent diseases and pests. It'll allow the plants to adapt quickly to climate conditions and apparently maintain soil health. In fact, here's what they claim. Terrana Biosciences combines RNA technology with advanced computational biology to deliver sustainable solutions for modern agriculture. Well, I guess if it's modern and it's sustainable, then whoo, that's reassuring, right? No, not so much. And if you weren't already suspicious, well, this should be the clincher. This group is reported that Terrana Biosciences was launched by Flagship Pioneering. And guess who they're a partner with? Reportedly, they're a partner with the World Economic Forum. And it's managed, apparently, by a World Economic Forum agenda contributor. And they have someone else there who works with them, who's chairman of the board of Moderna. So, nothing to worry about, right? Nothing that should keep you awake at night. No, go right to sleep, knowing our food supply is in good hands. Of course, I'm being facetious. Well, now it's time for our nightly Worldview Report commentary. CBS News reports that 11 people were wounded on Saturday evening in a stabbing incident at a Walmart in Traverse City, Michigan. And it would have been a lot worse if an armed citizen hadn't stepped in with a handgun to put an end to the dangerous situation. Grand Traverse County Sheriff Michael Shea said in a news conference that the stabbing happened near the checkout area of the store, and it appeared to be random in nature. The suspect, a 42-year-old Michigan man named Bradford Gilley, and reportedly he was not injured when taken into custody by the sheriffs. He does have a long history of assaults and drug use. He allegedly used a 3-inch folding knife in these attacks. The oldest victim was an 84-year-old woman, and the youngest was 29 years old. According to police, people in the store assisted in apprehending the man, and they helped treat the people that were injured. What they didn't say is that a man named Derek Perry pulled out his gun on the knife-wielding assailant and ordered him to drop the weapon. He had the assailant at gunpoint until the police arrived. Watch this.
Drop it! Throw the knife that way! Throw it away! Throw it away! Hey, he hasn't dropped it. Put it down!
Sheriff Shea stated, quote, "This was a joint effort all the way through. And as I mentioned, the citizens too," end quote. CBS News, well, interestingly enough, they made no mention of an armed bystander using his pistol to protect and save innocent lives. I wonder why. Could it be because it does not fit the narrative? You see, In the eyes of these warped minds, guns can only be used for evil, never good. So they seem to ignore the good, and they run with the bad every chance they get. As of Sunday, 4 of the victims were in serious condition, 6 were in fair condition, and at least 1 has been released. Now you have the governor of Michigan, Governor Gretchen Whitmer. She said in a statement, quote, "Our thoughts are with the victims and the community reeling from this brutal act of violence. I'm grateful to the first responders for their swift response to apprehend the suspect," end quote. Really? What about the hero? What about the heroes that include the citizens that began to bring urgent care to the victim? Joe Pennington, a Walmart spokesperson, told CBS News, quote, "Violence like this is unacceptable. Our thoughts are with those who were injured, and we're thankful for the swift action of first responders. We'll continue working closely with law enforcement during their investigation," end quote. Again, don't you find it interesting how none of the so-called authorities nor Walmart thanked the brave armed citizen who was the biggest hero in this incident? They thanked everyone else. Police, the first responders. But if Mr. Derek Perry hadn't been there, or if he was there and decided not to act, well, I think the first responders might have found nothing but dead bodies by the time they arrived on the scene. The American people, they deserve full transparency, not politically driven narratives that are designed to filter and protect the sacred cow issues of the left. So, shame on all those who turned heroes into the wrong people in this mass stabbing that could have ended in mass tragedy, if not for one man with a gun and the guts to use it properly. We will call him out for the hero that he is, for what he did in that situation and parking lot. That does it for this edition of the Worldview Report. As always, thank you for tuning in and supporting the broadcast. WorldviewFoundation.com, WorldviewFoundation.com. Don't forget, you'll find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. And don't forget about our fall conference coming up. Friday night, October 3rd, Saturday, October 4th, with an amazing lineup. Gordon Chang, Alex Newman, Dr. Andy Woods, Hedia, Chris Martinson, Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen. I know I'm leaving people out. It's going to be a great lineup. Full details, worldviewstore.com. Don't forget about the Thursday night optional concert banquet and keynote address by Hedia. That's Thursday night. That's optional. All the details, both the banquet on Thursday night or the conference Friday and Saturday night, you can reserve your seats at worldviewstore.com. We only have 350 seats in this beautiful theater here in the Mid-South, Collierville, Tennessee. Worldviewstore.com. But next time, I'm Brandon House. May God save America. Take care.